is time to take you between the lines. Your host, Eric Edmondson, is getting ready to bring you stats and analysis from around the sporting world with a special guest on 98.7 for radio.
It is Tuesday, April the 1st. No fooling, folks, because it is time to take you between the lines on 98.7 Roar Radio. Eric Edmondson, your host, here with you, and so happy to be back here with you talking about the beautiful world of sports. So let's go ahead and get into some headlines from around the sporting world. Starting off with UConn and Paige Beckers are returning to the Final Four after a 31-point performance from the Star. With that performance, she moved to third all-time in UConn's all-time scorers list. So congratulations to them, and hopefully Beckers and UConn can continue to make a run. I don't mind pulling for them now that my LSU Tigers have been eliminated. So sad, so sad. Moving into the baseball world, we actually got a good bit of news out of the baseball world in the past couple of days, really just the past day. Yesterday was a very busy day for news. Let's talk about the torpedo bats. The torpedo bats, now if you're not familiar with these are baseball bats, but the width of the barrel has been widened slightly to enhance where the ball is going to get hit. So a wider area and a harder area that the ball is being hit with creates more exit velocity, creates more velo, and just ensures a better hit. And these are sweeping the nation. We saw the Yankees do this to the Brewers. We saw that that Ellie De La Cruz was using it yesterday, and he went off. And we saw that the Braves have placed an order for one of these bats because they certainly need it, especially after their one off-season move in Jurickson Profar has been suspended by the MLB for performance-enhancing drugs. Profar had a breakout season last year. He was tested 8 times last year. He said that he never got popped in those 8 times. I'm inclined to believe him. And it's just very unfortunate as the Braves have started off 0-5. To start the year, and it's not going to get any better as they are still in L.A., they're still out west, they're still going to get rocked, but they do have the reigning Cy Young on the mound for them this evening in Los Angeles. And finally, Garrett Crochet and the Red Sox are in agreement on a 6-year, $170 million extension for the left-handed flamethrower. Crochet acquired in the offseason from Chicago. I think he's going to fit fantastic at the top of that rotation. He's built for a top-of-the-rotation arm, and Boston is a team that sorely needs pitching. They have needed pitching for years. That's one of the main reasons they haven't been to the postseason as long as they have is because they just don't have the reliable pitching that they need to make the big dance. That lineup is fine. I think it's okay. It's just not enough. And we've seen that in the past couple of years. Let's see what this pitching can do this year because Garrett Crochet, including this year and the next year and the next 5 years, is going to be in Boston. And back into some basketball talk. The NCAA Men's Final Four is set with Auburn, Florida, Duke, and Houston. I had all 3 of those in my Final Four. Houston broke my bracket. I still have Auburn beating Duke in the final. That's still in play. I will say that Auburn's going to be going in as underdogs versus Florida after Florida waxed them early on this year. And finally, our final news bulletin of the afternoon is the NFL, and this came in early. The NFL owners have passed a rule. They voted to pass a rule that allows both teams to possess the ball in overtime. That is much, much, much needed. The rule was previously, it was based on a coin flip. It was a game of chance. You know, if you win the ball in OT, you basically win the game. Not so much no more, as it was cries for this years ago. Now we have it officially passed by the owners. And with that, we're going to roll into a different type of football with our soccer talk of the afternoon, because today we are talking about the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League. The season is young, it is underway, and the Orlando Pride are picking up right where they left off last season as they sit atop the standings early on. Tied with them currently are the Kansas City Current. Timwa Chawinga is the reigning MVP. She is back. She is also leading up there in scores as we expected. We're talking about the power rankings of these teams, where they sit and what they're bringing to the table in 2025. And let's get into it. We're going to do a quick break first, though. So stay tuned. Make sure you go, grab a friend, grab a family member real quick, because we're talking NWSL coming up next on Between the Lines on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. Welcome back into Between the Lines on 98.7 Rural Radio. Eric Edmondson, your host, here with you, and let's roll into our first segment of the afternoon, which is breaking down the NWSL squads and how they're looking going into this season. Obviously, the season has already started, but it's still early enough that we can talk about how things are looking into the season, looking over the season. Let's start off with the Washington Spirit. They're entering the year with some injuries, I will say, but they do have a lot of depth. They'll have Rodman coming back as long as she does stay stateside, and as long as Rodman's able to kind of get the body rejuvenated. I know that she's been in a vicious cycle of playing here, going to this time zone, playing here, we're not going to have a break this time. A lot of international pull with Trinity Rodman. But the Spirit are geared up to, again, be fantastic. They usually are. They found their way into the championship last year, but unfortunately they ran into the Orlando Pride, who, in my opinion, have the strongest chances of coming back because, look, they're retaining all the talent. All the talent from last year, they're bringing it back. Barbara Banda comes back. She was second in scoring in the league last season, obviously to Chawinga, who won the MVP in 2024. But again, the talent that this squad was able to maintain is absolutely fantastic. Marta's coming back as well. The Pride are absolutely geared up to roll. They're on top of the standings right now. I'm not worried about the Pride. Last season, they led the league in points per game with 2.31 and overall with 60 points. So the offense is healthy, and I think also more importantly is they're not just a glass cannon. They can also throw up the defense as well because that goal differential was really, really sturdy. They were tied with the Kansas City Current in terms of goal differential coming out of the season last year. And speaking of Kansas City, they're right there with the Orlando Pride because, hey, this is a very top-heavy league here, and these Dolphins at the top, they are ready to roll, and they're ready to march. Kansas City Current, they're finding themselves in kind of a dissimilar situation. They have several departures from their squad from last season, but again, they're going to have Chawinga coming back, and Chawinga is just such a big piece of that because the potent scoring, just the scoring alone, it's having it on the pitch. I don't know if you can compete with it too well if you're anybody else because Chawinga is so dominant once they're getting the ball down pitch and moving in their own system. And I think that's very important for what the Current need to do is just work the system through Chawinga. I mean, it worked last season, won the MVP. Chawinga's up there with scoring again early on this year. So there's no point in not trying to push it as far as you can with their star player. And Kansas City, they held the highest level goals expected last season. So this was the expected amount of goals. They didn't get there, but if you're looking at the raw stuff and what they do on the pitch that defines them, the raw data is saying that they had 53.4 goals, expected goals in that season, which obviously isn't what they got. But man, you bring back some of these pieces. I know I mentioned that there's going to be some departures from this Kansas City team, which there are. I'm not saying there aren't, but there's still a lot of talent here, and obviously a lot of it with their reigning MVP is going to be one of the big ones. And then we're going to talk about Gotham next up. Gotham FC, they're the weakest in terms of the top teams. They've had a lot of off the field things happening that affect the clubhouse, but they're still a good squad. They're still up there, and I wouldn't be too worried about them in terms of maybe halting anything, maybe stalling out. I think they're going to make a deep run again this year. But again, they're going to have to work with what the pieces that they have, and it's just a matter of how well they can do. Then the Portland Thorns, who had one of the better scorers as well last year, the top 3 scorer at that in Sophia Wilson. She was fantastic last season. She was behind Banda as well as Chawinga in terms of the scoring table. They underperformed a lot last season, and they're just going to look to maybe a get well year. Maybe, some things didn't bounce your way like you wanted to last season, so you're going to get out there with a little bit of a different strategy, full head of steam, go back out there, run the table. They're definitely going to be in a better place this year. They didn't have to necessarily make a lot of changes to that roster. They just had to bring a couple people back, had to keep a couple people in place, and the talent is still going to be raw and good for the Thorns. Bella Bixby will be on maternity leave And once she comes back, it's going to obviously be a little bit of a better squad, but they still have fantastic fantastic depth behind her. Then we have the North Carolina Courage, who are a little bit of a sleeper, as I've been told. The Carolina Courage, they lost Carolyn, who was the MVP in 2023. She's in Man City now. But you made a lot of different pieces, a lot of different attempts to bolster the roster, one of them being Jaden Shaw, who is a fantastic piece to have at the top of your scheme. And she was on the USWNT during the off season and during the international season. So I do think Charlotte might be one of the sleeper picks that you can definitely look at. And in the defensive area, they have fantastic defense. They're able to stick it very, very well. I wouldn't be too concerned about that back end for the Courage. And again, this is a very top-heavy league that we're looking at right now, because all of these top teams, they sat there last season and they ran the table last season. Right now, the standings are looking like the Pride, the Current, the Spirit, and then Angel City FC is up there. They're in the top 4 right now. They're up. They have a 1-2 record at the moment, and behind them are the Wave. That's your top 5. So again, it's the Pride, Current, Spirit, Angel City, and the San Diego Wave, who are new to the bunch. But again, I do expect this league to maybe level out a little bit more. Obviously, when we rattled off that top 5, Gotham's not even near it there. They're having a tough start to it. So is Portland. Look, in Portland, Gotham, and North Carolina, 3 teams that we just talked about, but are 3 teams loaded with talent that they just need to figure it out. They didn't have the best start of the season, but I still believe in these teams. I still think that they have the talent measure to get them up there and get them over the hump. So not at all worried about any of these teams. We're going to throw it to a quick break and then bring it back with our special guest of the afternoon. So why don't you keep it right here on Between the Lines on 98.7 Rural Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. Welcome back into Between the Lines on 98.7 Rural Radio. Eric Edmonds, your host, here with you, and with us, our special guest of the afternoon, Miss Chloe Spradlin. Chloe, it's a pleasure to have you on.
It's good to be back, Sometimes you leave, but you always find your way back home. Always find your way back home.
Always find your way back to the Mont. So Chloe graduated in December from Piedmont and now has a new shiny job with the Atlanta United. How's that going for you?
It's honestly a dream come true. I couldn't have even imagined 5 years ago, before I got into college, saying, I'm 6 weeks after graduation, I'll have a job with Atlanta United. It really is a dream come true. I feel like, I feel like I'm really, I don't know how to describe it. I feel like I'm in the right place and everything's just coming up well, which obviously means I can only go down from here, right?
Either that or you keep climbing. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm living the dream right now. Today I got an off day, had 2 games over the weekend with the first team and the second team. So I'm kind of gassed, but doesn't mean I'm not enjoying every last bit of it. So I'm having a good old time.
And thankfully not gassed enough to come on and talk with us about some NWSL action.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and lead into that. Just go ahead and talk about the 2024 champs, the Orlando Pride. Coming into this season, right now they're on top of the standings. A great start of the year for them. But the Pride coming back, they look ever strong, Chloe.
Yeah, I mean, last year it was really shocking seeing them just show up out of nowhere, because the Pride throughout all of history and the NWSL have been atrocious. Even, back in the day, they had some of the best players in the world. Ashlyn Harris, Ali Krieger, they had Alex Morgan and Sydney LaRue on the roster, but they couldn't even make playoffs. They couldn't even get close. And so now to see them be as formidable as they are is incredible. It's really great to see, but now it has the question of, all right, they won the Shield, they won the championship. Can they go and, stay at the mountaintop? And so far they're proving that. They're proving that really well. I think they've got good organization. Whatever changes they made, in the front office have clearly been working. Obviously, head coaching changes they made last year was incredible as well. So, and then them still playing for Marta, who we all thought would retire. She said, no, let's run it back. She's back for at least one more year. I think she signed a 2-year contract extension, which you've got to assume is going to be her last one. But they're still doing great, and you have to be happy for them. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of other teams that can come into play and maybe shake things up a little bit more this year.
Absolutely, and hey, one of those other teams that could shake things up is the team they faced off in the semifinals last year with the Kansas City Current. It's also good for them to bring back Timwa Shawinga, the reigning MVP. It's just fantastic for them to put that talent back out on the pitch.
Yeah, I think KC. Honestly, I had KC going through just because they've seen a little bit more success in the years past. So you always think, can a new team go all the way and really show what they can do as compared to a team that has been to the mountaintop before. But yeah, I think KC, they were just missing that little piece. It's one of those intangibles that you can't quite put your name on it, or can't quite put your finger on it, but it was right there, but they just missed it. So I think KC, they might be just as successful too. I think they're real high up in the table right now. So I see them doing well this year. I don't know if they can quite reach the heights that Orlando did last year, because there was a spell for Kansas City last season where, they just weren't quite getting their results. It wasn't a bad spell by any means if you look at it objectively, but, for what they were wanting to achieve, it was a key reason why they did not go all the way and, get the shield, why they were just second best or just third best when it came to all of those things. So I think KC will do really well. I think for me personally, my biggest dark horse of the season is going to be North Carolina. I think they've made some good signings. They've got a lot of history when it comes to them. So I think their organization, their front office, knows what they need to do to win. At one point, the Carolina Courage were really the best team in the league, and honestly have been one of the best teams we've ever seen. So I think they've got a lot. I think they've got a lot of potential this year. They could really be a dark horse.
Absolutely, and when you have the historical value that the Courage has, you're playing for something when you step out on the pitch or when you step in between the lines. You're playing for something. That culture is obviously still there. It's just a matter of putting the right talent on the field, and they did make some key signings for themselves to perhaps launch them further into the tournament that they made than as far as they made last year.
Yeah, I think last year they had just made it in last year, and I think they went out first round. But it was one of those where, you made a couple signings. I think Ashley Sanchez, most notably, you made a couple signings in the middle of the season to where it was, okay, Ashley Sanchez was very shockingly traded from the Washington Spirit to North Carolina. And she was like, okay, she went on the Women's Game podcast with Sam Mewis, and Sam Mewis, who is a former North Carolina Courage player, won 2 championships with them. And she was like, all right, it took a shock value, and I think that's going to happen to any player that gets traded. There's a shock value. You have to really regain your surroundings and just realize, okay, this is where I am now. I'm really upset about leaving where I was, and you have to deal with the grief of that loss, of how happy you were in that environment. But she said she's feeling good in North Carolina now. So I think there's a lot of of potential when it comes to that, and I think Ashley Sanchez can really be the captain of that ship. She's still young enough to still say, yeah, I can be on the national team and I can still be in the prime of my career, but also has enough experience to really take on a leadership role. She's right at that sweet spot. So I think her, along with some other players in the Courage, can really go on and make something happen there. Maybe shock a lot of people.
The Washington Spirit, you just mentioned them right now. They are looking to find their way back into the championship. Obviously, such a powerhouse, but coming off a little slow this year is Trinity Rodman, and the team's definitely going to need her down the stretch.
Yeah, and she's coming back from that back injury that she had in the Olympics. I think one thing about Trinity Rodman, and not just Trinity, but a lot of players that have been in the national team pool, is that they haven't really had a break. They haven't really had a significant break. They went from NWSL season started, and then suddenly there was a big halt, and then they, traveled from the U.S. to Paris for the Olympics. Trinity Rodman played I would say at least 90% of the minutes in the Olympics, and was an incredible performer there. And when she came back to the Spirit, I think she had maybe a 2-week break at most to recover, but she was very open, and the Spirit were very open about how she had a back injury and was trying to recover from that injury. So, and then since then she had the off season, but in the off season, sure, you have a break from playing, but you don't have a break from training. Especially, the national team was still having camps, and even in the last couple camps, she's not been called in because she's been nursing some injuries, and it's just not been smart for her to go through. I think she's starting to get back into the swing of things when it comes to both the national team and and the Spirit. She was just called back into the international break, so I think she'll get there. She's Trinity Rodman, so you kind of always going to bet all your money on her just because that's who she is. That's how incredible she is. But I think she'll kind of get back into it. But the Spirit, if the Spirit don't make at least a semifinal appearance, it's a bust for them. It's not a good year for them, and that's the standard that they've set for themselves in the last 2025, in the last 5 years or so. They won the NWSL championship in 2021, which was Trinity Rodman's rookie year, and have consistently been a pretty strong figure. Last year, I actually had picked them to go on and win all the way. I thought that they were gonna beat the Pride in the final. Of course, it went the other way, but it's not that they didn't have a good performance throughout the season and in that championship game. It was a tough one. So I think they can 100% go all the way and win it this year. Just got to see kind of what happens with injuries, because they've got so many quality players, Trinity Rodman included. But if they are going to struggle with injuries throughout the entirety of it, then it's going to be hard for them, especially. But they've got an incredible coach, incredible owner. Michelle Kang is probably the best owner in all of women's sports in the United States, and I don't say that lightly. Like, the money that she invests into the Spirit is second to none. And then also having the former Barcelona head coach the Spirit now have, I think that his philosophy is now just going to really take off. And if it didn't last year, it definitely will this year.
So that's going to be doing it for our segment, Chloe. Do you have anything to plug on your way out, or just say hey to everybody here at the Mont?
Yeah, I miss everyone. I don't miss college, but I miss the people. University, or Piedmont University, Mass Communications, Sports Communications Department really made me who I am. I feel that I would not be in the position I am right now, working in my city for my hometown club, in my favorite sport. Just kind of living my dream with my dream role. I wouldn't have had that without the professors, the staff, my soccer team at Piedmont, as well as, my peers. So in all the classes that I was able to take here. So not to mention working for communications with Danielle Percival and the athletic comm staff there. So just follow your dreams, stick with the path. And for anyone listening that's at the Mont, if you ever need me, I'm a call away. I feel like a lot of people thought I was intimidating, but I feel like I want to not be intimidating. I don't know.
Always the inspirational Miss Chloe Spradlin. Thank you for joining us on the show this afternoon. All right, we're going to take a quick break and then bring you back with some games to watch for this weekend. Keep it right here on Between the Lines on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University.
Welcome back into Between the Lines on 98.7 Roar Radio. Eric Edmondson, your host, here with you again, ready to close it out for this afternoon with some action to watch for this weekend. Of course, we have let's start off with March Madness. Let's start with the men's side. Talk about the 4 teams that are in this final. It is, of course, Auburn, Florida, Houston, and who am I forgetting? Say it. I'm forgetting about Duke, folks. Of course, I'm not forgetting about Duke. What are you talking about? I had Duke in my Final Four. And again, I said at the top of the show, I do have Auburn beating Duke in the finals. But look, this is a fantastic Final Four. I know a lot of people complained about the March not having the madness this year. bump that. Give me the best teams facing each other. I want to see everybody slug it out. I don't want to see FAU going on a Cinderella run where they run out of gas in the finals. I want to see the best of the best, and this is the best of the best that we have right now in the Final Four. On the ladies' side, let me get that pulled up real quick. It ran away from me. It refreshed my page. I don't know why it did that. Sorry about that, folks. The Final Four we have are Texas, South Carolina, UConn, and UCLA. Similarly to the men's side, these are some of the best facing off. I mentioned UConn at the top. They got Paige Beckers, but hey, South Carolina's been a wagon all year, man. So I think I'm going to go with South Carolina. Maybe to win. I think I'm rooting for UConn a little bit more to beat UCLA after my LSU Tigers fell out of the tournament. And then finally, of course, we got a full week of baseball as it is not peak baseball season, but it's baseball season, folks. Atlanta will be in Los Angeles tonight. Atlanta looking to rebound after a very tough start to the season, but they do have the reigning Cy Young on the mound. So if you're in for some red-eye baseball, that is going to be a good watch. That will get started around 10 p.m. Obviously, they will be in New York. And going down the line, Kansas City will be at Milwaukee. That's going to be a good series to watch as well because those are two playoff hopefuls again this year. Milwaukee looking to repeat as Central champs. Kansas City looking for a ticket back to the dance. And, of course, we're going to talk about the action happening up in Birdland as Boston as well as the Red Sox are facing off. That'll be tomorrow. I believe they got bumped to weather. So that'll check that out as well as all the rest of the fantastic action that's happening around baseball. It's baseball season, baby. Let's get in the mood for it. But that's going to do it for us this week, folks. Make sure you tune in next week for another fantastic episode. We're winding down here at this semester, but make sure you tell a friend, tell a family member, and don't be afraid to tell a friend of me that you were between the lines. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in this week on Between the Lines. Tune in next week for another great guest and another great show. Check out the show on Instagram and YouTube at EOTC Between the Lines. Until next time, everyone, stay safe, make good decisions, watch sports, and as always, have a good one.